All right, hello, ladies and gents, people, everybody. Welcome to, I'm going to say another webinar because I'm assuming we're going to do more than this. This is going to be the first of many, I'm sure, Stuart. But we're here today to talk about a handful of things. So first of all, my name's Luke Carthy, and to my left or my right, depending on how you look at it, we've got SSS. His actual name is Stuart, just for FYI, but it seems that your title that you typed in when you actually came to the webinar is SSS. But yeah, Stuart Patterson, who's the wizard at FactFinder. But yeah,
it's all about the acronym. It's all about the acronym.
Fantastic. So let the people know who you are, and then we'll jump into the good stuff that people have been waiting for.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Luke. So I'm Stuart, as Luke so politely put it, also known AKA as SSS for today. I am the sales and operations lead for Northwestern Europe. So have quite a big sort of geographical reach here in the UK. And we have lots of interesting things to talk about.
We do indeed. So yeah, this particular webinar, we're going to be talking about last minute quick wins to basically improve your Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaign in 5 hours or less, like 5 hours or less. So normally we're in the thick of it at the moment. We're in the month of October. And we know it, the organized retailers and brands will have thought about Black Friday probably Q1, Q2 of this year. But in reality, there's a lot of businesses out there for reasons to do with maybe, stock, supply chain, just full tilt, business with everything else in the business. But even if you have your Black Friday campaign completely nailed and ready to go live and you just need to hit the play button, it's worth your eyes and ears, because there's a handful of things that you might be able to take away from this that we can do to kind of refine and improve the performance of your Black Friday Cyber Monday campaigns. I'm going to reference as BFCM going forward because it's such a string of words to try and get out. So we've got a load of good stuff to talk about. I'm going to jump into this by sharing my screen. And if anyone actually is bothered, Luke Carthy, I am an e-commerce consultant, and I basically obsess over all things merchandising, specifically Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Is a big topic of mine, and normally picking on retailers who haven't done it very well. But we won't mention any names today because they might be watching. But we'll get stuck in. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment, and we'll jump straight in. All right, so here we are. We've done the intros already, so I'm ahead of myself already. Brilliant. So I guess before we kick off, really, it just makes sense to set the scene with a handful of stats and bits and pieces that we've got to really kind of justify and show how big e-commerce is at the moment. I know we've got pandemic and COVID and everybody's lived it, and we don't really want to talk about that too much, but it really helps to kind of set the scene. So the UK at the moment is the fourth largest market in 2020, should I say, $105 billion, which is a ridiculous amount of money. So we already know that e-commerce is huge, but again, just to reinforce that. And then there's three retailers in the UK made up 25% of all online revenue in the UK. When you think about it, it's absolutely crazy. And if I remember correctly, they were Amazon, which is of no surprise there, let's be honest. Tesco, which is a little bit surprising actually, compared to, I guess, another supermarket. And lastly, Argos. So they're the top three big ones that generated 25% of revenue. And I bet, we're not going to do this today, but I bet if we did a walkthrough on their site search or something, there's opportunities where they could make it, an even bigger market share, but we're not about that today. And then additionally, one thing that I find really interesting from this data is we have a 700% increase in the number of people that have been seen searching for the word in stock in their queries. So not just in stock on its own, but like, I don't know, shoes and stock or men's shoes and stock or whatever it is, which I think is really quite interesting because, as we know, 2020 was a difficult year. 2021 seems very similar in terms of supply chain and stock and inventory and everything else, which is going to have its own pressures on the Black Friday, Cyber Monday real estate for a lot of companies as well, which we can certainly jump into. But what I find also really interesting is 57% of consumers love the idea of having to look on the website before they go into their local store or before they travel to a retail outlet, which makes a lot of sense. You do your research. The last thing you want to do is go somewhere and find, make the journey, and then it's not what you were expecting. And then additionally, 45% of respondents in the UK would like to order a product online and then pick it up in store. And that is, I guess, the tangibility of it, the fact that it can technically be faster. You haven't got to worry about waiting in for deliveries and lots of good stuff. So there's a lot of things here. Click and collect. and all that sort of stuff. And I guess these all feed into Black Friday and Cyber Monday as well. So data to set the scene. I guess, Stuart, have you got any thoughts on this stuff before we jump into the Black Friday bits and pieces?
I think the research offline, purchase online is a good one, really, because I know I'm quite guilty of that. Certainly going to stores, basically doing price comparisons while I'm actually in a store. You think about sometimes when you go to like a shopping centre or like something similar where you've got like maybe 6 or 7 similar brands within a short, in the same sort of space. It's very easy just to do a comparison when you're in store and have a look, see what the neighbours are doing. And at the end of the day, if we're price sensitive, sometimes basically that's the winning ticket as far as I'm concerned. I'll go next door and take my business elsewhere. So there's lots of things, there's lots of complexities really for retailers to think about. Certainly with the the statistics that you've just shown us there. You've got to digest all of them, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think one really good example of that, and a company that have really embraced it, is IKEA, because I guess IKEA is ultimately a giant self-service warehouse, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the exception of a few things, but they give you free Wi-Fi, you sign up, and you can. The idea is it's almost like a holistic experience to do exactly that in store: reserve, collect, browse, find out the pick locations, all that sort of good stuff. So I guess a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, I guess it makes absolute sense to build a holistic and a cohesive click and collect experience. And as you said, I'm guilty of it as well. Checking stock in store, seeing if I can find it cheaper somewhere else, picking the brains of an expert in curries, and then literally Googling it on AO.com to see if I can find it any cheaper. We all do it. We shouldn't, but we all do it. So I guess to jump into the meat and the bread and butter of this webinar, there's 4 things we want to kind of chew into. And one is redirects. Now, I'm not going to jump into these individually right now, but just the head terms. So really leading the way with redirects and how powerful they can be in the world of e-commerce, specifically in the world of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And the great thing is they're really easy to initiate as long as your site search is flexible enough to do that. Merchandising in a strategic way, which is a huge win. Merchandising, regardless whether it's this time of the year or it's your quiet periods, merchandising can be the lifeblood of e-commerce success. Identifying growing demand, which is really important. I've got a couple of examples I can throw down here as well. And then the benefit from search data and how it actually is more useful than Google Analytics alone. So we've got to kill the slides because that is pretty much it. And we're going to now jump into the actual quick wins themselves. Now, I want to hope I press the right button and don't kill the webinar recording. Success. All right, we good. So I guess the first thing we want to kind of chew into is redirects. Now, Stuart, I guess Team FactFinder, this is like one of the bread and butters of what you do. Like this is the meat of the campaign. But can you just give us, I guess, an intro into what redirects are in the sense of site search and how they collate? Because I guess a lot of people will be thinking that redirects are more of an SEO term and that sort of thing, which they are. But in this particular context, what are we thinking about?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's 2 ways of looking at this, really. One is basically from a product perspective in regards to sort of navigating to relevant products, simple as that. And the other element really is the content that users might want to find on the site. So I think it's really interesting that we looked at earlier, the sort of elements where consumers are putting in longer tail search terms now. We're talking about NLP, natural language processing, and the way that basically we speak is the way that we search for products and for content now, whether it's through Google or whether it's actually through an online website like Argos or Tesco's, like we've already mentioned. So redirects for me is product first, is where we can identify key sort of search terms where we're either seeing a high volume of searches for a particular category, so for trousers, for example, or TVs, and we can redirect the user to a set amount or a set portfolio of results. Now, that might not just necessarily just be a product page. There could be some other elements built into that page as well. So there could be additional content about the TVs, about the brand, There could be additional imagery, for example, to give it a little bit more of a holistic user experience. But obviously,
sure.
The important thing there is as well is obviously the relevancy of the products. If we're redirecting directly to a category page, you would expect that basically that page is going to be pretty seamless in regards to the content that's shown to the user. So that's the first thing about redirects for me. The other point, or point two, is what I mentioned just there. So the content side of things. So I see it all the time, looking at analytics with our own clients and stuff, and you'll see lots of search terms for things like returns or contact us, or even store details. So if you're a major brand or retailer or something like that, and someone types in Norwich or Cardiff or whatever, their user expects a relevant result. It expects to go to a landing page where the information is there that they've searched for. And that's the whole purpose of redirects, basically shortening that sort of funnel for the user to get from basically the search term to the correct page.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I think to unpack that second point a little bit, there's a lot of retailers, I guess, in my experience, a lot of the bigger brands like ASOS, River Island and so on have really kind of cracked this. But we see time and time again, especially with clients that I have, where about, as a ballpark, 5 to 10% of queries will be non-commerce. So there'll be a lot of people who, to your point, Stuart, are searching for returns policies, searching for customer services. Now, of course, what the typical behavior of a site search is going to do is look for products with those queries in, or look for pieces of content, maybe if you've got that configured with those keywords in, and that's not always there. It's not always in the index. So what ends up happening is someone searches for customer services, hits return, and then they get a no results page, and it's just a bit jarring. But I think what really brings that down to Black Friday and Cyber Monday is there's a really quick way to connect your, there's going to be a huge number of retailers, specifically brands like Argos, who are synonymous with Black Friday, where people are going to be searching for Black Friday. As simple as that. And of course, there'll be variances and synonyms of that. So sale, special offers, discounts. Even, I've seen cases where people are actually throwing in discount codes, whether that's purely accidental, they've hit the wrong field. But the point is, if the data suggests that people are searching with a non-commerce intent, then we should certainly take care of it. And redirects is something that you can do within minutes, to be honest, again, depending on your search provider and what products you have, to really be able to uplift conversion, improve user experience. And I think one of the greater things that people can do right away is, a lot of people want to buy things in Black Friday and then potentially return them, or worried about if they order them, so soon, and they're giving them away as Christmas presents, how will things work if I come to try and bring them back into store in the new year? Because normally you've got, 14, 28, 30 days to play with. So one certain campaign that I've seen work well is if someone's searching for Black Friday or someone's searching for returns policy, and you're offering an extended window of returns to combat, with the Christmas period, make that centerfold. Redirect the Black Friday term to a really nice, clean merchandise page, all the categorization in. And then additionally, maybe a banner for returns, which explains that, you've got until maybe, the 10th or 15th of January to return or exchange something. And again, it just really helps solidify, improve user experience, and reduce the anxiety for customers as well. And I guess we are in a COVID situation at the moment. Who knows what happens after Christmas? Fingers crossed, we'll be all right. But anything you could do to alleviate those unknowns with redirects is certainly worthwhile doing. But yeah, I think customer service is a great one. Black Friday is the obvious one. Cyber Monday, sale, discount code, and people even type in questions, right? Size guides. How do I? Where do I? Especially people who aren't particularly tech savvy. So I guess myself and yourself, Stuart, and anyone who works in this field, we kind of have an understanding, and I guess, we expect search engines to behave in a certain type of way. So I'm not really going to be the sort of person that enters a full question into Google, because I just don't think a search engine is going to be as comprehensive enough to understand a question in context versus just the queries that I'm looking for. Well, someone who isn't tech savvy might say, how do I return my order, or how do I return my custom item, or whatever it is. But yeah, redirects can be a really powerful way of uplifting sales and really connecting people to the content they're looking for. So that's a really, really good point. And it's super simple. That's like half an hour in a 5-hour window. right? So half an hour gone, 4.5 hours left. What do we crack on with next? I think it's probably a good time to probably jump into merchandising. I think that segues nicely from redirects, really. And I think one example I'm going to throw down is Homebase. And I know I always go after Homebase, and I said I wasn't going to go for a brand, but I think it's really important to bring them up. And the reason why I say that is because last year, although they've learned their lesson, when you search for Black Friday in Homebase, it didn't return any results. We had no results found. Homebase don't partake typically in Black Friday, but one thing that they've done, so I guess I'm getting ahead of myself here. If you are also a retailer for a number of situations, whether it's stock by choice, it's just not something you do. If you don't partake in Black Friday, there's no reason to not do a redirect for Black Friday, because you can certainly redirect to a page that says, hey, we're not partaking in Black Friday. We don't do Black Friday, but how about this? And you could put the sales section or the new in items or maybe an Easter egg discount code or something. But merchandising can be really powerful. And I'd kind of love to pick your brain, Stuart, in terms of your thoughts on merchandising as a template, things we should look out for, and how that kind of relates to FactFinder a little bit.
Yeah, interestingly, actually, you picked on a vertical really, which traditionally doesn't do particularly well in Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Incidentally, last year it was one of the only verticals which had a negative rate in regards to basically site visits compared to the previous year. So maybe there's a seasonal element coming into there. Let's face it, November, December isn't a great time to be going out and buying some rattan furniture or something. So maybe we have to take that into account. But yeah, there's, it's. I don't want to name names either, and maybe I am going to sit on the fence and not name names. But I think there's probably 2 or 3 brands that sit within that same vertical that you mentioned, which have particularly bad user experience and site experience when it comes to using and utilizing campaigns. And you're right. I mean, maybe they have varying degrees of basically what they want to achieve on Black Friday. I don't know. But compared to some of the European counterparts, I think it's fair to say that the UK equivalent basically performed quite badly in this particular space. And I think one of the key things here is as well, and you've touched on the whole COVID element as well, and that sort of lack over the last sort of 18 months or, at varying times within the 18 months of not being able to go into a physical store and ask and have that sort of advisory sensory experience that you have from a shop assistant, for example. You can go into B&Q or Homebase and say, basically, yeah, I'm looking for some rattan furniture. Whereabouts is it in the store? I mean, these stores are huge these days, let's face it. So you need a little bit of guidance. And really, that's something which some brands and retailers have really come on board within the whole pandemic. They've been able to create that sort of in-store experience, and they've been able to bring it into an online environment. There's lots of technology out there, and without sounding all salesy with you, yeah, of course, FactFinder have technology that basically aids and abets that type of experience, but it's all about leveraging it. It's all about looking at areas of your online store and saying, where do we need to advise the customer? Where can we give them some sort of guidance and basically shorten that sales funnel for them, and making that process of actually purchasing the product as seamless and as quickly as possible? Because me and you are no different. We're consumers at the end of the day, and the more steps that you have to go through, the more hoops that you have to jump through to make the purchase, the longer that time element goes on, the more likely that the clock's ticking, the more likely is I'm going to jump out at some stage and basically get hacked off with the whole experience. So a really good example, you've shown us, or you've picked out Homebase there as a bad example. A really good example is one of Europe's biggest DIY brands, if not Europe's biggest DIY brand, which is OBI. They have around about 450 physical stores across Germany and that part of the world. And they've really embraced that type of guiding the consumer from maybe 6 or 7 pages of products and maybe 400 or 500 products to basically in 2 or 3 simple clicks, getting them to the correct product, which is, it sounds like a bit of a science, but it's not. It's quite simple. It's just basically buying into what happens into a physical store, going through a question and answer process and basically redefining the products that the customer sees at the end. It's quite simple. And that's a really key way of using, certainly within sort of Cyber Monday, Black Friday, it's a really good way of shortening that sales funnel and improving your conversion rate as a retailer, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess to make that tangible and to try and keep it in that within 5-hour format, I guess for me, the handful of things, and I guess where I'd go to first is to identify your single word queries, because typically when I look at client data, when it comes to site search and that sort of thing, a lot of queries are normally single word. People are just lazy, right? They punch in a word, they hit return, and they expect magic to happen, But realistically, if you're a department store and you sell across many different departments and categories, when someone searches for something like handbag, and what are you talking about? Or bag, even more vague, like what kind of bag? Are you talking about a handbag, a backpack, God knows what, like a carrier bag? Like you've got no real context. So the typical response in those situations is to serve an endless list, if you like, of results. And that, you could be swimming in pages, and intimidated by the number of results returned. Typical kind of mid case is normally a redirect, which would go to a category. So maybe you'll have a bags department, and then, that's great. But I think to Stuart's point, what you can basically build is a very quick and simple landing page where you kind of, you look for all your ambiguous, really broad queries. You make landing pages for them, and you build that conversational search, right? So again, to use an example, someone searches for bag, you bring up a landing page with a redirect that says, what kind of bag are you looking for? Are you looking for designer handbags? Are you looking for backpacks? Are you going camping? What's the use case? Then once someone's made a choice, you narrow it down. So if someone selected, let's say handbags, I guess you've got different categories of handbags, whether it's, again, designer, whether it's going out, whether it's practical, it's for work, whatever that is, the different materials, leather, etc. So you kind of really allow customers, to Stuart's point, of navigating the way they would in store. So you'd walk into the store, you'd probably go to the bag section, and then you'd obviously, work out what it is you're looking for. When someone searches for bag, we don't have enough information, but you can still provide that almost aisle-like experience with narrowing search down. And I imagine that's kind of where OBI comes in and really steers and helps people around. Now, what's really interesting is, and the massive opportunity here, whether it's Black Friday or not, is for a number of clients of mine, the biggest percentage of queries that are so should I say it another way? So the queries that are of 1 or 2 words make up the vast proportion of queries that are typically punched into a website. But what's really interesting is they're typically the poorest converting. So if you're thinking about quick wins, small, huge, ambiguous keywords that are 1 or 2 queries, you optimize 5 of those, or even 3 of those, specifically if they're Black Friday, Cyber Monday, sales-esque. You fix them in landing pages and redirects, and you've almost kind of built yourself an uplift in sales, and you've connected to people in a way that you may have not done for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And I guess that's so merchandising typically, I guess, is seen as this quite intimidating. You've got to get graphic designers on board, you've got to get developers on board, you've got to get these templates signed off. And although, traditionally you think about merchandising a homepage and department pages first, yes, I agree that that's a multifaceted, multi-team approach. But if you're using your site search effectively, you have the right tools to do so in your site search, you can go away and DIY these things relatively quickly and have a decent return at the same time. And I reckon that will probably take you a handful of hours, so maybe 2 or 3 hours. So we've still got, where are we up to? We say we've got a couple of hours left, right? Got time for a coffee break. You're on a winning streak. You practically nailed that promotion for the end of the year. Now you've got 2 hours left to go and smash it. So I guess the next 2 points we kind of need to chew into is identifying growing demand and then benefit from search data. So all of that sort of good stuff there. But yeah, again, I'll let you take the floor again, Stuart, in terms of identifying growing demand and I guess what that means and how you unpack that on your side of the fence at FactFinder. Yeah,
sure. So I think the going back to what you said there, agility is quite key as well. Being within this 5-hour block, you've got to have the tools which give you agility. You've got to be able to basically implement what you want when you want it. And obviously, like you said, if you've got restrictive processes where you're going to dev agencies and things to get things done on Black Friday, then good luck with that. But yeah, so in regards to sort of the sort of whole demand element, in regards to sort of looking at, I guess, promoting stock and things like that you want to promote during specific times, whether again being Black Friday, you might want to start looking at the way that you merchandise your products based on things like stock levels and things like that. For example, Black Friday is notorious for providing really bad user experience. Things don't stay on the shelves very long, so to speak, metaphorically, in the online world. So again, you've got to be careful in regards to basically how you start merchandising stock and how you're promoting stock based on demand, and using sort of things like an algorithmic approach where you can promote products based on availability is a really good way to not only sell products, but make sure that you're relevant and that your users are not going to be disappointed when they get to the basket stage and the products are actually gone. There's other elements that you want to take into account here as well. So any sort of favorable partnerships that you have with particular brands and things like that, you might want to look at ways of obviously promoting those particular brands within your own shop environment. Again, they potentially may give you better margins and things like that. And of course, I think the good thing really to enhance, and I know we're going to come on to this on the next point, is basically from an analytical point of view, is being able to sort of identify those key searches, those key products that you know that you have to have merchandised correctly, doing this really sort of important part of your annual sales process, because there's no point having products basically that are going to be bestsellers and that are going to perform really well if they're buried on page 2 of your website. I mean, it's the whole Google scenario, isn't it? If you want to hide a dead body, hide it on page 2 of Google. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same with products. You have to be relevant. You have to, but again, you have to be agile. You have to have the tools in place to do that. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long weekend. And don't get me wrong, some retailers will be, we're working 24/7 and the rest of it. But you'd be surprised how many retailers and brands out there do have smart technologies which allow them to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is probably a testament to the time that we're in at the moment, where we know it's in the news constantly, whether it's fuel, or at least it was in the UK, where everyone went absolutely crazy for fuel, couldn't stop buying enough of it, to the point where everyone ran dry, all the way through to supply chain issues, where people have kind of reported now that, if your stock and containers weren't already on their way in September, there's a chance you might miss Christmas altogether as a retailer. So identifying growing demand is one thing, and I guess we'll jump into that in a second. And then second of all, being able to fulfill that demand is quite something else. So, one example, again, to jump into identifying growing demand, I think for me, really, the thing that I like to attack with is to look at all the search queries where you've got a decent amount of volume. So maybe, whatever, when I say a decent amount of volume, I mean relative to your actual traffic. So whether that's 1,000 queries, whether that's 100 queries, I guess it depends on how much search terms overall, how much traffic you have. But start with queries that are returning either no results or poor results, because that will allow you to understand how people are searching. And I think one really good front of mind example for this is the query coronavirus, right? So if we're thinking about Holland & Barrett for a second, which is another retailer here in the UK that sells vitamins and supplements and all that sort of good stuff for well-being, they had a real opportunity where COVID was hot off the press, so to speak, and was really quite, people didn't know what it was before a lockdown. It was really kind of ramping up in the news, where they would have naturally, I can't imagine any other way, had a huge amount of increase in demand for the query coronavirus, whether it's 1 or 2 words or COVID or COVID-19. And of course, Holland & Barrett sold a handful of products that, okay, they can't naturally say that it cures COVID, but what they absolutely can do is say it can help, your defense, whether that's vitamin C, whether that's pain relief, whether that's things to reduce your fever, whatever that might be. And they missed that window because they didn't identify the growing demand. And that's something that they I guess they missed out on as an example. Now, in terms of the opposite side of the fence, in terms of, okay, you've identified your demand, how do you fulfill it? This is a tricky one, because if you don't have the stock, especially, talking about the fact that you've got 5 hours, there's really nothing you can do about it. But there kind of is. And I think one example I like to go to is Cadbury, their chocolate fingers brand. And I don't know if you've ever noticed it, because I'm quite the Poundland shopper. I always like to go around and try and find bargains. So every year you see them refactor the exact same product in different packaging. So this year, white chocolate fingers aren't white chocolate fingers this time of year. They're now skeleton fingers, and they're like 60 pence more than they would have been. You probably get 30 grams less product, but it's the exact same product, just rehashed and remarketed in a completely different way. My point here is, if stock is such a problem, maybe there's a way in which retailers can do something like that. They can spin stock in a different way, and repurpose it and remarket it. And I think that's normally what Black Friday is about, right? It's kind of inflating the cost of things, making them seem that they're brand new, but really it's stock you've had collected dust in your warehouse for a couple of years that you just couldn't shift. But yeah, I think it's a tricky one. But I think identifying growing demand outside of the 5 hours is going to help you to identify what stock you're getting next time. And a real world example of that is, I had a client who actually myself and Stuart know quite well, and they had a big number of searches for rack drawers, and they didn't sell any. So naturally, they created that product, and I found an immediate sales gap. But it really does pay dividends to really identify how people are searching, what they're searching for, and what you can sell into. And that's kind of identifying growing demand. I think to try and tie that back into the 5 hours and the Black Friday, Cyber Monday situation, I think it kind of straddles all of these points, whether it's redirects, whether it's merchandising successfully. If people are searching for something that you may or may not have, but you've got something that might fill that gap, then absolutely go for it with redirects and synonyms. So I guess, to use an example, if someone is searching for, this is a really bad example, but I've got nothing. If someone is searching for cashew nuts, I'm naturally hungry, and you have chocolate cashew nuts in stock, but you don't have regular cashew nuts in stock, then surface the chocolate ones, because they might just sell. And let's be honest, if you haven't got them in stock, especially with the whole supply chain situation that's going on around the world at the moment, maybe nobody else has. So if you can offer a decent alternative, and again, something like that wouldn't take you very long to set up, that's better than showing nothing whatsoever. And I think that could be how you leverage Black Friday this year, because we haven't got the stock to play around with. Prices are going up. Stocks are becoming more difficult, especially if you're in the world of automotive, where used car prices are going up here, new car availability is just completely going down. If someone's searching for a Ford Focus and a particular diesel model, then maybe you've got a Ford Fiesta with the same engine. I don't know.
It's a good example, and I've actually seen a real life example where excuse me, a retailer is selling wax jackets, and a well-known brand, basically they refused to stock of this particular wax jacket, and what they did was just offer the user an alternative. So as opposed to showing them a no results page or a dead end result, all they did was just re-merchandise it to say, hey, you're looking for this brand, a little bit of content, like you said, a redirect of sorts or a campaign, just to say, we don't stock this particular brand for whatever reason, but hey, look at these guys. Basically, a little bit of blurb about the business as well, a little bit of heritage, a little bit of history, goes a long way in regards to educating the user and then fulfilling the purchase element as well.
Yeah, and I guess tying back into the point you made earlier about emulating that in-store experience, that's the kind of thing you'd expect. You've walked into a store,
sure,
you're after product X. I mean, obviously, if it's groceries, it's not in stock, you might look for an alternative. But if you're looking for something where you're buying furniture or something that's a substantial cost or a complicated purchase and it's not in stock, then normally, you'll be presented with a handful of alternative options that actually might be better, more cost effective, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, makes sense to emulate that online. And I think that kind of ties in nicely to our last point. Now, I think GDPR, cookie law is a thing. And as we know, if anyone is kind of tapped into the world of that properly and is abiding by the law in that sense, then we know that, there's a varying percentage of people who can and can't be tracked. But I think what's really interesting here is when we think about search data and site search data with reporting, is that in most cases, depending on the technology and vendor that you use, almost 100% of all queries will be tracked, because it's not, whether you opt in or not to cookies, we're obviously not identifying you as a user, we're identifying the searches you made. So if you're looking for the best source of data and information in a world where, privacy is more and more important than ever, especially the whole Facebook fiasco recently, cookie or GDPR, then your search data is probably the richest information you're going to be able to get, regardless of what people's opt-in or opt-out preferences are. And I think that kind of just ties into everything we've kind of mentioned today, which is if you want to start optimizing, you've got 5 hours to get started, then your search data is really quite powerful. It helps with context, helps with misspellings, helps with languages, helps with demand, time periods, how people are behaving. I think we've spoke about Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but equally, you can apply all of this information to Christmas as well. It's right behind us. So people searching for Christmas will likely happen just a single word, whether it's Xmas or the full well Christmas. What is it people want to see? What is it you sell that relates to Christmas? Are you a home furnishings company like Dunelm, for example, where it's all going to be about potentially Christmas crackers, soft furnishings, Christmas decorations, all that sort of stuff? Or are you an electrical retailer and it's going to be about, big tellies, Sky Sports subscriptions and entertainment, etc. So make use of it based on your data. And again, Stuart, chime in if you've got anything you want to add, but I think everything that we talked about today it starts with search data.
Yeah, absolutely. Data is a key component, isn't it? It tells you so much about everything. It tells you so much about, the products that you should or shouldn't be stocking. It shows you where you're falling down in a user experience environment. So, is there, if you're converting customers, I don't know, through search at 9%, and you've got particular categories and stuff that are converting at 2 or 3%, that's what the data's there for. I mean, it's there to identify these things. What do we need to do with that poor performing search term? Basically, is it the fact that basically the products need to be scrapped, or is it the fact that we can get some extra yardage out of this if we do something, create a campaign, for example, like you've just said? So there's so much information in there, and the key thing for me is basically being able to look at the complete customer journey as well within your analytics. If you've got the capabilities to see at search term or at product level, and being able to go into that particular session and then see the complete journey. What filters did the customer use? Basically, at what stage did they add the product to the basket? Did they then conduct another search? Did they click on any recommendations? Again, there's varying degrees of analytics packages and technology out there that you can buy into, and I guess a lot of it comes down to resources. You as a brand or a retailer or as an individual, if you're a one-man band, but just make what you do have. Just make good use of it. Don't ignore it. It's there for a reason, and it can give you so much headline information and give you a really good insight into not only to your customer base, but your brand, your products, and everything else associated with it. Yeah, fantastic. It's a great way to probably wrap us up then. So, yeah, I think we've chewed through a bunch of things that you can do within a 5-hour window or a working day with time to spare. Bag up promotion and have a really successful Q4 and festive period, whatever that looks like. But I think one closing point I'd love to add is that the reason why I love to jump into site search data is because people who use site search are many times more likely to convert than people that don't. So if you want to focus on what makes people tick and what makes people buy, that's a really good place to start. And there's normally always loads of low-hanging fruit there. As a consultant, that's where I start. That's where I deliver my ROI for clients. And equally, I'm sure Stuart and team will leverage, that's why they build the reports that allow you to get that sort of intelligence. So 5 hours, solid working day with breaks, coffees, time to chit chat to your colleagues or work from home and go and watch, an episode of Squid Game, whatever you want to do. You've got plenty of time to go and make that happen. Yeah, it's been a good one. Cheers, Stuart, for letting me jump on. No worries. No worries. But yeah, we'll end it there. And hopefully people take some good stuff away from it. Great. Take care. You too.